Hello, guys, once again. Today I want to talk about a very interesting subject, and the subject is genius. So, genius is for me a very interesting subject because subconsciously I've been trying to break down this idea. Why do people call someone a genius? Why does the word genius exist? And I've seen the people to whom this name has been ascribed. I've seen the many times this name has been ascribed, and I've also subconsciously derived the essence of why people give this attribute to someone. So let me use an example. Let me use a person, then somebody who I actually believe is a genius, fitting of the title, fitting of the name. So Isaac Newton. So Isaac Newton is a figure that I feel like believes this title more than most people, most individuals. I feel like this name just fits him, and or this attribute. Sorry. The reason is because what he was able to do for the age he was able to do it, and the transformational power of his ideas into the world, or the transformational power of his ideas to the world. And saying this, I don't think he was perfect. I mean, I think there's some things that he did that are flawed, and that's why people like the German physicist. I've forgotten his name. People like I'm forgetting the name, but the German physicist were able to do things after he. I mean, were able to discover some very interesting things after he had done his part, and and um, and so Isaac Newton, famously you've had, if you've not had this, just look around for it. Neil deGrasse Tyson is famous for saying that Isaac Newton by far is the best of all of them because he did all that he did. Most, not all that he did, but most of his foundational work, or most of his transformational work, or most of the work that we know Isaac Newton for, he did all that before turning 26. That's crazy. Most people by 26 are thinking about their girlfriends, they're thinking about how they'll make money, they're thinking about very many things apart from trying to give the world better ideas. Not even better ideas, powerful ideas. There are many 25-year-olds who are thinking about giving the world better ideas. They want to make money mostly. But Isaac Newton was thinking of powerful ideas to change the world. And I don't think probably he was thinking about ideas that would necessarily change the world. He was just trying to solve problems. And and this is exactly what genius is. Genius is somebody, at times, themselves, they don't even understand the magnitude or the power within them. They don't understand it because for them they're just doing something that seems natural to them, but exactly what they're doing is powerful. It's beyond explanation. At times, most of the times, it's beyond explanation, and it almost borders to the divine. It doesn't reach there, but almost borders to the divine. So a genius, somebody who at the moment, and people actually, most geniuses, one attribute about them is most people give them the attribute, not themselves. Give themselves, they don't give themselves the attribute. They don't call themselves genius, or they don't think of themselves as. They might think of themselves as smart. They might think of themselves capable of doing something in a very good way, but they're not. They don't fully understand the fact that what they're doing is exceptional. What they're doing is beyond. Like most people cannot do what they're doing, and the fact is they're not just don't understand the fact that most people cannot do what they can do. They also don't understand. I mean, they understand that they're good, but most of them don't understand that they're that good, and they might only start to believe that they're that good when they hear what people talk about, when they hear people talking about what they can do. uh, Otherwise, in their own freedom, they're just doing what is natural to them. So Isaac Newton fits that that criteria. And I can tell you an example why. So you see, the thing is, um, if you've had the famous biography, the famous sort of Isaac Newton, you'll know that he had a friend, yeah. So Isaac Newton was this guy. He wrote his ideas down, yeah. He didn't like really publish it, and he didn't really think about the power of publishing. I think he thought about it after he saw the results of his work, but he didn't really think about the power of publishing. I mean, before first publishing his work, and he was just writing these wonderful works. What we know about him today, he was mostly publishing incognito. Let's just say that, and he published, and it was not his own idea to go and publish. It was his friend. His friend read his ideas, and he was shocked. I mean, he was shocked at the magnitude of what was there. I mean, it's the kind of thing is, let's say I'm your friend, yeah, and I find a pile of papers you've written, and for you, these are papers you've written in your free time. You're just scribbling, yeah, and these things you're just scribbling like on your free time. I read them and I realize, oh my god, this work is just mind blowing. I mean, this is the kind of work that shouldn't be sitting in someone's house in a lobby or somewhere. Like, this work should be public. So, upon his friend's insistence, is when he thinks about it, and that's exactly that's exactly what I mean by genius. Mostly doesn't know that they're genius, and they understand the fact that they're capable of doing something very well. But mostly geniuses, another thing you'll realize about geniuses is they're mostly lonely. And because they're mostly lonely, they can't benchmark readily of what they are able to do. You know, they can't benchmark what their ability looks like. And it's until they get to the stage or perform with people is when they can understand that, oh my God, what you can do, I mean, what I can do is quite, I mean, exceptional. So Isaac Newton is that. The other story of Isaac Newton you hear is, um, his friend asks him. I mean, his friend, just upon reading his work, realizes that Newton developed, a drawing. I mean, a conception of the universe, whereby the planets and the solar system, just a conception of the solar system where you have you have um, you have um, elliptical axes, or no, orbits, sorry, not axes, elliptical axes, not orbits, sorry, why am I confusing them? You have elliptical orbits rather than circular, because back then, I think this was popularized by this thought, or this thinking pattern was probably popularized by, maybe Aristotle, I don't know, one of the early age philosophers, that the act, because the universe is perfect, because God is perfect, the orbits of the planets must be circular. Like the circle is one. The circle is perfection. Yeah. So they believe that, people just believe, because they were not able to view or see from far, but they just believe that it must be circular. So Newton in his drawing, he doesn't do what other people are doing. He just draws an elliptical. What we have now, what we believe now, what we understand now is true, the elliptical orbits. So his friend asks him, why are your orbits elliptical rather than circular? Ellipse is like basically parabolic in shape and whatever. So his friend asks him, why are your orbits elliptical rather than circular? And he says, oh, give me a minute. Or like, he just tells him, let me try to figure out. Well, let me figure that out, okay? So Newton, in he's going to figure that out. He just creates calculus. I mean, okay, he discovers. Of course, there's a German, another German physicist, I believe, at the same time, who figured out independently calculus. They have different ways about going about it, or they had different ways of going about it, but it's basically the same thing, calculus, yeah. And Newton walking alone, just like it's like I tell you, why is this thing happening this way? He just figures out something out, and it perfectly is able to describe what is happening there. I mean, that's genius. That's genius. I mean, you can just play off calculus. Calculus is one of the hardest subjects for most, whether it's physics, whatever it is, for most mathematical sciences. For most people doing mathematical sciences, calculus is one of the hard. It's not the hardest, I know. I mean, there are far harder topics in mathematical sciences, but I know calculus, for easy brains, calculus beats the shit out of you. I know. But that's Isaac Newton. Another case in point is let me oh, Tesla. I don't I, right now I'm being very conservative. I don't want to use this term from on many people, but I just want to use it on the people who I believe deserve this title well or much more. And they don't, it's not just deserving this title, it's this title fits them very perfectly. Tesla, Nikola Tesla was a genius by far. Like the word describes him. And I think the reason why is, I think for geniuses there's something about how they think. You see, for the average person, the person who's not a genius, let's just say there's genius and non-genius, yeah? For the average person, for the non-genius, for them thinking, they think in already established patterns, and they're very comfortable in thinking that way, and they develop their thinking basis on things that have already been developed. Geniuses use some of that, but mostly they try to figure out the exact reason why something is the way it is, and if there's any error or anything that doesn't fit their understanding, they go and search for it. They're not satisfied with just plain old truth or something that people have accustomed to as truth. They just want to find the truth and be able to explain why it is the truth. Be able to say why is this true and not the other thing, or distinguish between two things, or so something like that. Yeah. So Nikola Tesla, and another thing, particularly about geniuses, is their minds can almost create a model of reality in their heads. That's very very interesting for me. Is that something like, let's say an engineer or a mechanical engineer, particularly a mechanical engineer who deals with cars, and this kind of a mechanical engineer, a genius mechanical engineer would have something more like, he can, it's like he can absorb the design of this engine in his head, and it, like he can absorb the design of this engine in his head, such that he can manipulate this design in his head. This is the thing that I heard about Tesla. I once had this attribute about Tesla, and I was like, yeah, that's crazy genius. Like you have to be genius to be able to do that. Nikola Tesla was famously, sorry, able to manipulate the design of a motor. I think he, in his works, he was famously mostly he liked electricity. He mostly dealt with electricity and its everything to do with electricity. And in that, he mostly dealt with the motor, the electrical motor. Yeah. So he famously could, let's say a motor is brought to him with a problem, and he can figure out in his head where the problem is, or alternatively, which I think was the exact case, is he's trying to figure out new designs for a good motor. Yeah. So most people will do something like make a prototype and iterate on that prototype until it becomes good. Now, genius, the kind of thing that Nikola Tesla had, is No, I don't think I need a prototype. I don't think I need to make the real thing. I think I can do it in my head. I can just manipulate the designs and like whatever you see, whatever we use a prototype for, whatever we use iteration for, the genius that Nikola Tesla had was able to do it in his head. Oh my God. I don't know how, maybe I'm just being crazy over this kind of fact, but I don't know if this impacts you as much as it does me. That's crazy. Like I can manipulate an idea in my head and twist it, and come on, that's genius. That's the thing we live for, geniuses. That's crazy. Okay, let me find another example of a genius. I said, oh, Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a genius, particularly because um first of all, Leonardo was able to predict. Leonardo was a mid age. Leonardo came from the Middle Ages, the Renaissance period, the 13th to the 15th century. There, he's a man of the Middle Age, yeah, Middle Ages, sorry, and he was able to predict a lot of things that came to be in like um the 20th century, like far later than his period, like more than five. I don't know how many years later, more than 500, probably even more than 600, 700 years later, like so many years later, he was able to predict. And I mean, his drawings, his, I mean, I think Leonardo was a mind with a body. For most of us, we're body with mind. I think Leonardo was mind with body, and his is one of the kinds. I don't understand his kind of genius. His is crazy. Like I understand people like Newton. People like Newton, I think, is a gift and obsessing like a child over an idea and testing out your ideas and doing it over time, and you're just good. Yeah, he had to, but Leonardo da Vinci is different. I'm not necessarily saying that he's above all of them, but first of all, he was a polymath. First of all, I believe, like no other person I'd ever been before. Of course, Newton came later. Newton was also a polymath, but I don't think Newton was a polymath as much as Leonardo was. Like Leonardo da Vinci is a quintessential polymath. Like he's a definition of what a polymath is. There's very little things in short that Leonardo couldn't figure out in his mind. So in essence, Leonardo had an integrated mind. You know, the most geniuses, somebody like I'm trying to find his name out. Albert Einstein. Yeah, one of the people who is described as genius. Albert Einstein was probably very good in physics and mathematics, but very many other things not so good at. Yeah, so that's what I mean by integrated mind. No, Albert Einstein, I wouldn't give him the title of someone with an integrated mind. Leonardo da Vinci, on the other side, I would give the title of an integrated mind because this was a mind where there are very few things that he couldn't understand in the observable universe, and that's different. I mean that's very key because as to wisdom, I don't know if he had wisdom because it's very possible you have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of understanding, and lack wisdom. I don't know, but Leonardo da Vinci is kind of, let me just use the word outlier. Yeah, even Isaac Newton is quite an outlier, very quite an outlier, very quite an outlier. Yeah. So yeah, Leonardo da Vinci. I don't know how to exactly categorize him, because they're geniuses. He's a different type of genius. The word is different, not necessarily above all of them, but different. He's just different. He's different from from. I mean, he could be close to Isaac Newton in the way they perform their things. I think probably Isaac Newton drew from him a lot. I don't know, but they might be similar. It's just that Leonardo da Vinci is the extreme end of that, and I think Leonardo da Vinci was a genius to the extent that I think that level of genius is the kind of genius that makes you a very, first of all, abnormal person, and you have trouble with your mind. Like you actively battling your mind. Yeah. So yeah, that's. So I just want to use those three people. I've said Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, and Leonardo da Vinci. Those are three people who I believe exemplify the term genius. Like the very embodiment of the term genius. And if I have to choose between one of them, who exemplifies it more? They all encapsulate it in very different aspects. But let me just say this: Isaac Newton and Nikola Tesla capture a very strong place in my heart when it comes to this example. I mean, in my mind, sorry. They capture a very strong place in my mind when you talk about the concept of genius. Because these guys, what they were able to do is kind of exceptional. And it's not exceptional that just because they were able to do hard things, it's the simplicity and the joy. The quintessential genius looks like a child playing with toys. The toys being the concepts he's playing with, or the main ideas that he's known for, whether it's ideas, real things, or tangible things. Looks like a child. The way the child plays simply with toys, doesn't think much about them, just enjoys playing with the toys. And in doing that, they come out doing a lot of things, like things that people consider very crazy, things that most people cannot even manage to do. So yeah, that's exactly. Look at all geniuses; they share a very common trait. They share a trait, first of all. I mean, they share common traits. Let me just use that. The common traits that they share is, one of them is the fact that they mostly don't understand the magnitude of their genius. They understand the fact that they are capable. They understand the fact that they are exceptional, but they don't understand the magnitude of their genius or what they can do. Second, simplicity. They have a simplicity with how they do their things. Things that seem otherwise hard to people, for them, they do it with a simplicity, like that of a child playing with toys, as I've said. Um, um, another very interesting attribute. This is probably one of the most interesting attributes. Is their mind looks like a workstation. Yeah, such that it seems like they're able, for the things that they're good at, they're able to, like, it's almost an absorption of tangible physical ideas or tangible physical things outside into their head. It's like they have managed to encapsulate a 3D model of the things that they're good at into their head, so that they don't have to physically interact with things in real time. They can just manipulate those ideas in their head. Because, first of all, another thing also, to just edify this fact, or to adjust this fact so that you can understand it very well, is it seems that most of these people have very powerful observational powers. Powerful observation means they're able to recreate reality into their head. That's why some of these geniuses are very famous at painting. They're very good at painting. So even artists in a way, encapsulate genius, because they and the better they're able to recreate it, the more genius they are. They're able to recreate reality in their head. And beyond just recreating the reality, that's just the first part. Recreating the reality is just the first part. Once they have it in their head, they don't have to. Now they use their intuitive powers. They also have this power very strongly. They have very powerful observational powers. They have very strong intuitive powers. And these two powers combined is this essence. I think is one of, okay, I can't explain, I can't say what is exactly the essence, but I think these two powers combined is one of the things that make the essence of a genius: observation and intuition. So I hope you've enjoyed that explanation, and I'll end my video at that. See you next time and have a great day.